What it do, guys? It's Miggy, Miggy, and we're back at it again with another episode of Random Rambling. And this time, we're going to be talking a lot about esports. So today, we're going to be talking about MPL Philippines Season 16. Regular season just ended, and playoffs is just around the corner. So let's get into it. Honestly, MPL Philippines Season 16 has been one of the most competitive MLBB seasons to date. There were no guarantees or anything. There was a particularly dominant team, but I'd say it wasn't compared to the other teams. They wouldn't be super dominant. Like their levels are pretty close to each other. It just so happens that on those days, on those matches, they happen to win. So yeah, MPL Philippines Season 16 regular season just ended. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about what happened during the regular season. I want to talk about the playoffs coming soon. And honestly, there's a lot to talk about. So before we get into it, let's talk flow. So we're going to talk about what the regular season format is. I'm going to talk about highlights, notable moments, and events during the season. And we'll take a look at the standings. And then, of course, our favorite part, we're going to be discussing the meta because there's a lot to talk about for this season. Honestly, because there was a really big patch in between season 1 to 4 and then week 1 to 4 and then week 5 to 8. So we're going to be discussing meta regarding that matter. And then yeah, I think that's going to be it. We can wrap up right after that. So before we get into it, we're going to be looking at the regular season format because honestly, we got to make it clear. We got to make sure that when we're heading into it, there aren't any complaints or any issues or concerns regarding positioning or seeding. So, the MPL Philippines Season 16 regular season was consisting of 8 weeks. So, each team is going to play each other twice in one season. And you guys might be looking, there are a lot of ties like 9-5s, 9-5s, 5-9s, and you might be wondering, why is one team favored over the other? And the MPL or the Mobile Legends Bang Pro League actually adopts a point system wherein a 2-0 is not equal, a 2-0 win has more point weight than a 2-1 win over another team. So you get more points if you have a clean sweep, and of course you have less points if you get that 0-2. And honestly, I want to get that point across because the points matter in this sense because as you can see, 9-5, 9-5, Onyx Philippines and Team Liquid. This was a battle for top bracket and or top seed. And you want to be sure that when you're looking at it, why did Onyx Philippines get it? And it's because of their point difference. So point difference meaning, okay, it's a really big tie. So we're looking at points. They're both similar at points. And then we're gonna look at difference. They both have +9. And then here comes the head-to-head tiebreaker, wherein they're gonna be looking at how Onyx Philippines fared against Team Liquid. And Onyx Philippines beat Team Liquid in both times they met. So that's why Onyx Philippines secured that top seed. The second top seed, at least. While Aurora, had a dominant showing. But yeah. So that's the regular season format. And so to reiterate, the regular season format is 8 weeks of matches. Each team will face each other twice in a regular season. And then out of the 8 teams, 6 will be moving on to playoffs. And depending on your placements, it's either you already secure that upper bracket seed, like Aurora and Onyx did. And then the other 4 who did not will be playing in to the upper bracket, wherein it is currently at single elims. So it's a best of 5, single elimination. So whoever loses between Team Liquid Philippines versus Team Falcons Philippines or Twisted Minds versus TNC Pro Team, whoever loses their match there will be eliminated. Thus moving, and the victor thus moves on to the upper bracket. where it suddenly becomes a double elimination format. And yeah, so that's formats for regular season and playoffs. So of course, that's just the normal. That's just standard operating procedures. So now let's move on to the notable things that happened during the season, and I want to be looking at the regular season matchups. Honestly, before we get into match highlights or game highlights, a lot of things that happened outside the game in the Pro League did happen. So we had two casters move on to other opportunities. So shout out to Tupe and Ingan for their work and their successes and their efforts in MPL, and hope they have good luck in their upcoming journeys and or whichever path they take. So yeah. So aside from those two, there are a lot more things that happened, but I guess that's one of the things I want to highlight because they were big people or big faces, personalities in the community, and they gave so much of their time and effort into the expanding the MPL or Mobile Legends competitive scene here in the Philippines. So shout out to Tope and Ingan. Good luck moving forward. Now let's get into match highlights. Honestly, as I mentioned previously or during the intro, there was a big patch in between the first meetup or the week 1 to week 4 and week 5 to week 8. This is what they call the Project Next 2025 patch or the big patch as colloquially termed, or when you shorthand it, it's the really big patch because there were a lot of meta changes. Though some heroes stayed the same because of comfort, the big patch brought about 4 new map types wherein before a match starts, it gets randomized. So a lot of games suddenly change. You aren't expecting like previously wherein each match, depending on the patch, will end either really late or really early. So that's what's dictated by the patch. But because of the 4 new map changes, which are Flying Cloud, Broken Walls, Expanding Rivers, and I'm forgetting one more, but Expanding Rivers, Broken Walls, Flying Cloud, and I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry, guys. And Broken Walls, Flying Cloud, Expanding Rivers, and what is that fourth one? What is that fourth one? Wait a minute, guys. Dangerous Grass. I am sorry. So those are the 4. Dangerous Grass, Expanding Rivers, Flying Cloud, and Broken Walls. So depending on the map type you have, your heroes are gonna change because for sure you aren't playing Ling, though Ling is not meta right now. Ling in Broken Walls because it's just gonna use up so much energy. And then if you have Dangerous Grass, you're not gonna play too soft. You're gonna be playing a lot of setters because you have a lot more bushes to check, shrubbery to deal with. So those are some of the common things that affected. And then statistically speaking, a lot of people notice that Flying Cloud games actually last longer than your other map types. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So honestly, the big patch really shook things up. But before we get to Project Next, let's discuss week 1 to week 4. So a highlight here would be it was a 100% ban rate on 1-1. 1-1 was not played at all during week 1. It was only actually in the latter weeks that 1-1 was left open. And I'd say it was a pretty stagnant meta. People were adjusting to new things. People were playing with new teams. So week 1 to week 4, honestly, I want to highlight Twisted Minds because Twisted Minds was one of the lackluster teams from previous season 15. But they did decide to bring in the former MDL champions, Onyx 9 Lives, with the help of MP the King as their senior or veteran on the scene. And they had a really good showing. I believe they only lost thrice. So they still had a standing of 4-3. And they beat out Onyx Philippines for that title for the week 1 to 4. And honestly, I feel like they worked really well because coming from MDL, experiencing that global ban format, and Coach Bonchan's synergy with them and his really weird drafts off meta, you could call them off meta drafts. And since these players know how to play any heroes, it really works well with the drafting style and coaching style of Coach Bonchan. So, yeah, that was an unexpected twist of events. And honestly, since we're talking about victors, I want to talk about, someone who had a really rough patch during week 1, and that would be Team Falcons Philippines. Though they did secure their first win against Aurora in day 1 in their season debut, they just went on to till the next season, till the next patch, till week 6, they continued week 5, they ended their lose streak. But they were, after winning against Aurora, they went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game lose streak. And it looked really bad. It was a very dark time for Team Falcons to be a Team Falcons Philippines fan. And it was just so hard to watch them because they were one of the top 4 teams way back when in season 15. And then people started wondering what went wrong, what happened. And it was honestly, people were thinking maybe it's just the patch adjustments. People weren't getting used to it yet. And of course, as I mentioned, this is one of the most competitive seasons for the Pro League. And you could see that there were a lot of best of 3 series actually. Not many 2-0s. A lot of 1-2s or 2-1s in the first half of the season. And yeah, honestly, the meta, in terms of meta, there's nothing too surprising there except for the 100% ban rate on 1-1. And I'd say the hero pool during the first half of the regular season was very stagnant. You consistently had either Lancelot, Yisun Shin, and Fredrin. Those are the usual junglers. Mid lane, pretty much the same as well. You have your Farsas, your Zushins, and your Kimmies, actually. It really leaning towards a lot more tri-core or dual core meta, wherein you were also playing a lot of Granger. A lot of Granger, a lot of YSS. So, meta was pretty stagnant because people were probably adjusted to the patch enough. But then all hell broke loose. The second half of the regular season. This is where I'll see first week, it's the playtesting time, playtesting week, because people have yet to understand the patch. People were expecting certain things. There were a lot of changes, aka the 4 map changes, the changes on Rome. But then because of that, a lot more spicy picks suddenly started showing up. People started going for dual fighter lineups. People started bringing in Mage Bane or Magic Bane because of his second skill scaling. And there were a lot of upsets, honestly. AP Bren 2-0ing Onyx Philippine, that would be one. Team Falcons, this is when Team Falcons began to soar. Soar high like a falcon. Because honestly, it was just so hard to be a Team Falcon fan when you saw that 7 lose streak. But then they pulled it out in the end, and they came out guns blazing. They were able to secure a playoff spot because of that they had to readjust. And honestly, it makes sense that a lot of things were kind of shifty during that time because this is where patch understanding really plays a part. Because the patch was just fresh and new, people were really trying to figure out what was going on. And honestly, kudos to Aurora, our top seed, ending the regular season with a 13-1, only losing out to Team Falcons. And Coach Master the Basics understanding of the patch. Honestly, people were shaky with the addition of Aurora Light, or Light as the new roam, replacing Renegade. But then it just suddenly worked out. They understood the patch. Their movements were very smooth for the patch, and their hero pools were very adjusted to the Project Next patch. And I said a lot of patch, but I digress. Honestly, congrats again to Aurora for securing that top seed. Now, hopefully, they keep that consistency going and they win it at the end. But we don't know. We will be talking about predictions later. And yeah, I think those are the highlights. Honestly, a match I want to highlight here is Kelra playing Magic Bane with 3 holy crystals, or I think yeah he was gonna build or he already built 3 magic crystals, securing that late game on a very crucial game, or it was a very great game honestly, and it was a you could see that chemistry really takes precedent in the current patch. You have to play the meta if you want to be securing that game. So that's a note for your ranked games. As much as you have your comfort picks, maybe it's time to also start picking up and widening your hero pool to cater to the new map changes. And with that being said, let's look at the standings because I started mentioning a lot of it. Honestly, it's no surprise if you went 13-1 with only one loss to your name. You're Aurora Gaming and you secure top seed. It was a very close match between Onyx Philippines and Team Liquid, though Team Liquid really had that momentum going coming from a fresh championship. I think they got shaky during the latter parts of the regular season, wherein they started incorporating new strategies and they were currently like every other team adjusting to the patch, and it was kind of rough with the Team Falcons game. They lost there, but they still secured playoffs. Honestly, since we were talking about this being one of the most competitive seasons, it was really like gut wrenching, or you really had to stand and watch because you don't know if it was gonna be your turn, if it's gonna be your team's turn to get eliminated. Because honestly, it was only during week 8, day number 2, where we saw which teams were actually gonna be competing. The teams who are gonna be securing their playoff spots. And most, if not all, past seasons, you could probably see or assume by week 7 or so that okay, these are the top 6 teams, and moving forward, it's just hope for better seed placements. But then in this season, in season 16 of MPL Philippines, it was only in that last part, week 8, day number 2, where we saw that okay, these are the 6 teams playing, and now they're gonna be battling out who's gonna be securing what position during the top seed. And talking about that, Onyx Philippines is the second top seeder, so they are moving on to the upper brackets immediately, while 4 teams have to battle it out. Those teams being Team Liquid Philippines, Twisted Minds, TNC Pro Team, and Team Falcons. Those are the teams who are going to be battling it out, and we'll get to predictions before we start. We'll get to the predictions later on, but given that, GG's to Smart Omega and AP Bren, though AP Bren yet again do not secure a playoff spot. You could see a very visible improvement in their gameplay. And for Smart Omega, with their new team, new lineup, honestly, GG well played because you were still gunning and you still had the fight in you. With the 5-9, you were able to secure wins against tough opponents. So you guys still, GG well played. And before we get to predictions yet again, we're going to geek out. We're going to talk meta. Because honestly, we have a lot to talk about because this season had a big change in the middle. So the patch from first to fourth week is very different from fifth to eighth week for MPL season 16. But though a lot of those changed, a lot of things happened during the regular season, there were still some mainstays. And honestly, it's still a very, you don't know how the jungle looks. The jungle, I want to talk about the meta per lane. And honestly, jungle saw barely any change from the first half to the second half of the regular season. Jungle barely saw any changes. Maybe in rotations, maybe in prioritization of which objectives, but the jungle position or jungle role did not change as much. It's still with Lancelot, Yi Sun Shin or YSS, and Fredrin. with those three heroes, you still have a bit of sprinkling in between them where you have your assassins being prioritized, which is Hayabusa and Joy. They are your comfort picks. So honestly, there's no surprise there. The only big change for the jungle role is their their pathing and their objective priorities, but it's still gonna be your big three are Yi Sun Shin, Lancelot, and Fredrin. Moving on to the mid lane. As you can see, it's pretty clear who the top three mid laners are, or mid lane picks are. Kimi, Zushin, and Farsa. Those are your three favorites. Though it was a nice to see Kagura entering the pro scene. It was a pleasant surprise, honestly. Selena was still there. A lot of them in the early stages, they were prioritizing more bursty mages. So you had your artillery mages like Kagura, Farsa. I wouldn't call Kagura artillery, but she's a burst mage. So Farsa, Kagura, and Selena. Those are your assassins and your pick off mids. But it was only later on people started prioritizing or seeing the value of damage over time, which is why Kimmy started getting picked. Kimmy and Zushin are your mainstays, and when needed, Lunox is played as a secondary carry. And with those picks, that's the biggest change, I guess. Later on in the second half of the regular season, a lot more players were prioritizing damage over time mid laners. So I guess the top three in the mid lane would be Kimi, Zushin, and Farsa. As we can see here, Kimi being 6th place as picked, Zushin being 7th, and Farsa being at 11. And moving on to our other one that did not see a lot of movement or changes, that would be our XP lane. You still have your bruisers, you still have your bruisers and your fighters. So these guys want to activate, they dish out the early game damage, and it's a pleasant thing to see because of the changes with Lapu. Lapu is actually our top. At number 2, 59 picks, Lapu Lapu was picked a lot, if not banned, during our regular season because of that damage reduction during his Bravest Fighter skill. It just meant that he could prioritize a bit more damage builds, but he still sustained or remains tanky because of that effect. So Lapu Lapu, you still have your mainstays, which are CC and Phobius, and you have your Arlot as well. So why are they still in the scene? Why are they noticeably visible? It's because of matchup. So if you're gonna pick Lapu, a 50-50 matchup with him would be Arlot. Those are the ones that trade up. And when you pick Fov, it's 50-50 is CC. Though special mentions to Ura and Glue as your tanky XP laners if your lineup needs a bit more thickness or a bit more more defensive lineup, just in case you're running tri-core or duo-core. So yeah, I guess for the XP lane, for that 50-50, it would be Lapu Lapu and Arlot. And then your other 50-50 would be CC and Phobius. Those are your matchups for XP lane. Now moving on to the gold lane. Honestly, there's a big change here because of how people or how teams are understanding the meta. You still have your mainstays. Your top fours would be your Hariths, your Grangers, your Moskov, and your 1-1. Honestly, I'm putting 1-1 here even though she wasn't picked a lot. Solely being she was banned 100% of the time during a long time during our regular season. And we can see after she got picked 6 times, she won 5 of them, lost once. So that goes to show. 1-1 is a priority. So those are your top 4 in the gold lane. But I want to discuss it a bit more. So your Grangers, Harrods, those are the mainstays because they're really the comfort pick. Though they got nerfed a bunch of times, Harrods mana is not as potent or as sustainable. Granger does not have as much damage as he used to have, but because Sky Piercer still exists, that damage reduction is slightly negligible, but it's still felt, especially if you don't have your Sky Piercer stacked up. Moskov being your late game insurance, and 1-1 just being 1-1. It's just really hard to deal with her. And the ones I want to bring up or talk about are the fighters. If you guys could see, CC here has been played 18 times, though not all of those times have been in the XP lane. CC and Ruby and Bane have been the choice picks as the fighter gold lane. Though we did recently see Cho being played in the gold lane by Benny QT. Those are your three fighters. And you might be wondering, why did they go three fighters with CC, Ruby, and Bane? Honestly, it's because of the whole the tricore or duo core team composition. So what do I mean by tricore or duo core? Basically, the lineup consists of 3 or 2 late game carries. So what do I mean by that? Usually that's a late game mage or a late game marksman. So the one core will be YSS or Yi Sun Shin will be played in the jungle. That is your one core. They have to accelerate his farm. So you're going to be picking heroes that could set him up early to proceed with the snowball. And then you have Kimmy. Kimmy being your late game damage dealer. That DOT is just so sustainably painful, honestly. And once you have those two, they're going to be fighting for a lot of farms. So if you're going to include another marksman or another greedy mage, you guys will be fighting for a lot of gold in the map. As we know, gold is finite, and it's going to take a lot of time for 3 of you guys to go online. So that's why fighters started existing in our meta, fighter gold lanes. And honestly, a runner-up would be Lunox. Lunox was also played a bit in the gold lane, but if we're looking at her stat sheet, she got played 10 times. She won 3 times, lost 7. So take that with a grain of salt. So if we were gonna be looking at the changes, honestly, the S plus tier for gold laner still stay the same. It's the big 4, which is Harith, Granger, Moskov, 1-1. But in terms of spicing up the season, you gotta give it to Mage or Magic Bane and CC Gold Lane. Though it was tried I believe it was tried during the first half of this regular season. It did not work as effectively, but because of the map changes, especially with Expanding River, with how fast CC can move or rotate, Expanding River just allows the gold laner to actually be part and present during those big turtle or lord objective takes. So that's it. That's for my gold lane. The big 4 stay the same. Try out if you guys could understand the team composition requirements, CC gold or Bane gold. And then now moving on to what people said or what the fans or the community said about what's the big changes are during the patch for Project Next, and that would be roam. Honestly, we saw a lot of changes during the roam. A lot of people were predicting a lot more utility roamers like healers and whatnot. And honestly, they were right to a point, to an extent, because of how risky or dangerous the map state is, especially during Dangerous Bush and Flying Cloud. So the roam changes, if you guys have not read the patch notes, the roam changes basically allows the roamers, the ones who have the roam boots, get more golden EXP. So they aren't limited or capped or bottlenecked into a XP or gold deficit if you play it effectively. So you are rewarded for being a proper or good roamer. What do I mean by that? If you are able to provide vision to your team, you will get golden EXP. If you plan to be a more sustaining utility roamer using healers a lot like Florine, Estes, and whatnot, you actually get residual golden EXP for staying in the lane. So you're seeing that there are two possible playstyles that could enhance the roamer's gold and experience gain. So what does that entail? So basically, if you play aggressive and provide vision to your team, you will get rewarded with golden EXP. And if you play a very sustaining hero, much like a healer, and you help out your lane partner, you will be rewarded as well with golden EXP. So if you're able to balance this out with the proper heroes for the situation, you will efficiently be playing roam. And if you see a good roam player play their role properly, chances are you're gonna see that they're not even in the bottom of the gold or the bottom of the net worth. That's why people are saying Rome will be one of the biggest buffed roles because suddenly you could play item dependent roams, especially if you know how to play the position properly. And it goes without saying, we went into those two types of roams. So you still have your utility healers, but a lot of teams prefer having a tanky roamer. And why is that? If I keep bringing it up, I keep saying that, utility is going to be a big thing. Healers are going to be back. And that's because the current meta of regular season was all about the tri-core or duo core lineup. So if you're going to be playing a lot of damage dealers, of course you're going to want a lot more frontline. So people started going with the likes of Gatot, Hylos, Grok. So a lot of big setters, and you still have your your situationals being Matilda, who actually got picked 6 times and won six of her matches, so that's good. And a one hero that I want to talk about is Angela. If you guys haven't read, Angela's heal got gravely reduced, but her ultimate cooldown is now 20 seconds. So she actually transitioned from being played on roam to mid. So that's one big jump, right? That's a really big jump in terms of farm requirement. And why it's being done is because of that whole duo core tri-core team composition where you still need a tanky boy for your roam, and because of Angela's nerf on her heals, you need a lot more items to have a lot more team fight presence. And as you get that level 4 earlier than your roam counterparts, you have access to helping out your teammates without even leaving your lane. So that's why Angela was being played in mid. But aside from that, I'd say the mainstays would be Gatot Gatot, Hylos, and CC. Kalea, I'm sorry. Gatot, Hylos, and CC have been the most played roams during this regular season, with Gatot being played 56, CC Kalea being played 40, and Hylos being played 31 times. So if we're looking at it, these three heroes actually share similar skill kits or toolkits wherein they have sustain for themselves so they can heal themselves, and they are setters. So Gatot with his taunt, CC with Kalea with her tsunami slam, and Hylos with his revitalized pickup and point and click stun. Though Grok is there also because of how tanky he is, especially if you're going against Selena. Grok is a really good pickup and was actually being banned and picked a lot more during the latter half of the season. And it's probably because people started understanding and learning how to use his spell combos, which is wall flicker, heavy slash, I believe, and then you do a tectonic charge. So basically, if your Grok knows how to do the combo right, the enemy team will not be moving at all from that position. So those are the three. So they are tanky healers with a good amount of set, and Grok just being Grok. So let's recap that. For the mid lane, you have your for the jungle, you still have your Yi Sun-Shin, Fredrin, and Lancelot as the top three, with comfort picks being Hayabusa and Joy. Gold lane would be the big four: Harith, Granger, 1-1 Moskov, and special mentions to our fighter gold laners, which are CC and Bane, and Ruby. Ruby was not as played as much, but CC and Bane are the very notable ones. And for our XP lane, it's the 50-50 squad. It's Lapu Lapu versus Arlot, CC versus Phovius. And then moving on to the mid lane, though we started the season with a lot more artillery, being Farsa and the burst mages like Kagura and Selena, we were slowly introduced to damage over time heroes such as Lunox, Zushin, and Kimi. And for the roam position, we still have our tanky boys. Tanky boys still take the show with Gatot, Hylos, and Kalea. Their healing, their crowd control, and their sustain just puts them as an easy to pick, must pick in whatever map you get match. And special mention because it's such a good flex pick. Angela being played either in roam or mid, but a lot more of the teams were playtesting her as a mid laner, and it's understandably so because it's a lot more effective to use her as a mid laner because of the item requirements she needs, and because of that cooldown being what it is. It means that she could become that +1 when a roam and jungler proceed to gank one of the side lanes, and then if she does, and she doesn't even have to continue it as long as she provides that shield and then cancels it, she's fine. And then that's her map presence in a sense, thus providing more pressure in the lane. And that's it. That's the meta breakdown for the regular season for MPL Philippines Season 16. So let's get into what everyone wants to be looking forward to, the playoffs. As we can see, you have to get your tickets soon. I don't know when it's going to sell out, but the grand finals has already sold out. So be aware. Hopefully, you guys could support your favorite teams. And again, let's talk brackets. In the upper bracket or in the play-ins, Team Falcons versus Team Liquid Philippines. And then on the bottom half, it's Twisted Minds versus TNC. Whoever wins between Team Liquid and Team Falcons will go up and face Onyx. While Twisted Minds versus TNC, whoever wins there will be facing Aurora. So if we're going to be looking at this, playoff bracket, Team Liquid versus Team Falcons, I say it's going to be a Team Liquid Philippines win. Especially, I'm pretty sure they're going to be very hungry, especially that last loss against Team Falcons. So it's going to be Team Liquid proceeding to go against Team Onyx, or Onyx Philippines. While on the bottom side, match 2, Twisted Minds versus TNC. I'm actually leaning towards Twisted Minds because Coach Bonchan drafts really well for what it's worth. And Twisted Minds did beat out TNC the last time they faced off. And as long as Twisted Minds denies TNC their picks, they more or less secure the game. But TNC does have Benny QT and Chaknu. And honestly, I want to see them moving forward. So we're going to go for the bias pick, which is TNC. So Team Liquid Philippines will win against Team Falcons. TNC, just for flavor and story's sake, will beat out Twisted Minds. So moving on to the upper bracket. Upper bracket with my prediction being Team Liquid versus Onyx and my other prediction being TNC versus Aurora. I believe Team Liquid Philippines will beat out Onyx. Another bias story for possibly because I am a Team Liquid fan, but I don't think it's going to be a 3-0 or a 3-1. I believe they're going to be playing a best of 5 game. While TNC versus Aurora, Aurora's going to take it 3-0, I feel. or 3-1 or 3-0, but I don't think they're going to be playing the whole 5. So with that, it's going to be Team Liquid Philippines versus Aurora in the upper bracket finals, with Onyx versus TNC in the lower bracket semis. And I believe in the lower bracket semis, it's gonna be Onyx taking down TNC, obviously, because my top 3 would be Aurora, Onyx, and Team Liquid. So moving on from there, Team Liquid Philippines versus Aurora. I feel that Team Liquid might take it. I think it's gonna be a big, no bias. Team Liquid might take it because of the Demon Kite versus Carl TZ matchup. But then it's gonna be a best of 5. And then Aurora versus Onyx. Aurora's gonna win that, I feel, because they just have a better understanding of the draft. So it's gonna be a matter of drafting. I feel that when it's a Coach Why Not versus Coach Master the Basics draft match, Coach MTB has the momentum and does understand the patch a lot better. So I believe it's gonna be a double whammy. We're gonna be having a upper bracket finals between Aurora and Team Liquid, and then a grand finals between Aurora and Team Liquid as well. And with that, I believe it's gonna be a best of 7. They're gonna be playing all games, and I think Aurora might be able to secure it by then because of that momentum. They have that momentum going, and hopefully they do secure that win. So yeah, my top 3 would be my first, second, and third place would be, as we saw, it's gonna be Aurora Gaming, then Team Liquid, and then Onyx. Sadly, one has to go, and honestly, we only have 2 slots, and though they are the top 3 teams, it's gonna go down to Aurora and Team Liquid, the 2 slots. Sadly, GG, well played for Onyx. If that were the case, if my predictions come true, nice try. But yeah, again, that would be my predictions for the playoffs. Sadly, we can only have 2 representatives for the M7 coming next year. But yeah, if you guys have the time, if you guys have the resources, feel free, or I do encourage you guys to play. I mean, to watch the playoffs, because it's just something to watch, to behold. Because honestly, again, this is the most competitive season of MPL Philippines ever. Mobile Legends Esports just gotten a lot better from when it started, and a lot more of the players are super hungry to get into it and try to get that M7 slot. So again, get your tickets now. The grand finals has been sold out. A lot more. Please support your players, your teams, your Philippine representatives this coming M7. And yeah, that's it for my MPL Season 16 recap, and of course my playoff predictions. If you guys enjoyed this type of content, or if you guys have your own predictions as well regarding whatever's gonna happen during the playoffs, or your thoughts during regular season, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. I read the comments, so I do enjoy getting more insights from you guys. And yeah, if you guys want to keep up to date with me, my socials are gonna be in the post or in the description down below. And again, it's at Miggy on my Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So yeah, again, it's Miggy. MPL Philippines Season 16 recap over, and I'll catch you guys real soon.